So, if you clicked on this video, chances are you want to learn an East Asian language. I mean, no wonder. Both Chinese and Japanese are completely fascinating languages to the eyes of a Westerner. I mean, they both sound and especially look completely different, but yet we're still seeing more examples of them reaching into our pop culture, like Chinese being used in memes more and more, and Chinese songs becoming popular. I don't think I even need to talk about anime, where the appeal isn't just cool looking cartoons, but even more so, I would say, how the language sounds, how, elegant it is.
罪を受けて当然な悪人が心臓麻痺で死んでいく裏で、そうすれば確実に世界はいい方向に進んでいく。そして僕は新世界の神となる。
Now, if you ever thought about studying an East Asian language, you might have also wondered, which one of these should I choose? Now, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna try to give you a fair comparison that might help you choose between them. So first of all, the writing systems, which is something that immediately catches the eye of anyone who's ever come to contact with either Chinese or Japanese. The writing system in both of these languages requires you to know between 1,500 and 2,500 characters to understand, for example, 95% of what you read on the internet, 90% of what you read in the newspapers, provided that it's not a highly specialized topic, which, I mean, 1,500 and 2,500 both can sound like a lot. But I can assure you though, the characters aren't random. The more characters you memorize, the easier it becomes to learn new ones and recognize patterns between them. Like for example, the Japanese character for sea, umi, and the Japanese character for pond, ike, both have these 3 dots, which symbolizes water, that it has something to do with water. Or that the Chinese characters hai and gai both sound similar because of this part of the character. My point is though, you will need to learn roughly the same amount of characters in both languages if you want to become fluent. So don't think that you need to learn less in one and more in the other. It's roughly the same amount of daily used characters. However, rest your mind, and I feel like this is one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, is that you don't actually need to learn how to write them. Because usually, even native speakers, they type out the characters, You can just download a Chinese or Japanese keyboard and type it out in Roman letters, and then the keyboard will automatically let you choose. You don't need to remember the strokes, when's the last time you wrote somebody a letter? The one difference though between Japanese and Chinese writing systems is that Japanese also has hiragana and katakana, which are syllabaries, It's basically a writing system in which you can sound out the words without having to use Chinese characters, because, both Japanese and Chinese use Chinese characters, but you can't actually read any coherent text unless it's something specifically written in a simplified way for children. For Chinese, Taiwan has something similar, which is called 波破莫佛, which is also roughly 40 symbols representing each letter, but that is only used in Taiwan and not in mainland China or Hong Kong or Singapore. Okay, so that doesn't really count. Moving on to something that actually does make a big difference, which is Chinese tones and Japanese pitch accent. The pronunciation in Chinese for beginners is oftentimes difficult to grasp because of each word having a tone. Now change the tone and you also change the meaning of the word. For example, 诗 with a flat tone means poem, but 诗 with a falling and rising tone means shit. As you can see, the meaning can change quite drastically. Some people would argue that when you're a foreigner speaking to Chinese people, your tones don't matter as much because the Chinese people, they'll just take your words with a grain of salt and try to, guess what you mean based on context. But I feel like that is the case only when talking about simple topics, because when you start talking about more difficult topics, that's when you really need to start using and listening for tones to avoid miscomprehension, With Japanese, there is something similar, but far less important than in Chinese, and it's called pitch accent. That can also sometimes change the meaning of the word. Like for example, ame with a low-high pitch accent means rain, but ame with a high-low pitch accent means candy. However, distinguishing the meaning of individual words based on what pitch accent you put on them is far less common in Japanese than it is in Chinese. Every word still has its own proper way to be pronounced with pitch accent, so if you want to be fluent and sound like a Japanese speaker, you will need to pay attention to it. However, you can go in your Japanese learning journey past N1, which is the highest level, without ever learning pitch accent. That is also possible. Now let's talk about grammar. During my years of studying both languages, and I would say most learners would agree with me, I have concluded that Japanese is easier to get into because of, let's say, easier pronunciation, but gets harder as you study on an intermediate or more advanced level because of grammar. On the other hand, Chinese is a lot tougher to get into because of, the intricate pronunciation, not only the tones, but also the consonants. But once you get a hang of the pronunciation, it actually gets easier because the grammar is not that hard and it's pretty intuitive. On top of that, Chinese doesn't use honorifics, so the sentences don't change based on what kind of politeness level you want to express to the listener. It's just always the same, very similar to English. Whereas in Japanese, honorifics, the level of how much polite you want to be affect the word choice, affect the sentence endings, affect the way you start talking to someone. It has all of these different nuances based on your age, your position in the company, your position in school. I mean, like if you're a junior or a senior, if you're a boy or a girl, those are all things that affect in which way you should speak Japanese, so people don't look at you weird like, what the hell did he just say? Now that I've given you 3 aspects of these languages, I want to get down to brass tacks, okay? I want to emphasize that what really matters when choosing a language is how interested you are in the particular language. It's a very personal choice, and it also depends on what you want to use the language for. If you are naturally more interested in Japanese, you want to, for example, travel to Japan multiple times throughout your life, or you want to read manga, in the original print, or whatever it may be, don't choose Chinese simply because, for example, it has easier grammar. On the other hand, because of how limited Japanese is, it's only spoken in one country and the population is declining, let's be real, don't learn it just because it's popular right now. Like, if you're not inherently interested in Japanese, don't learn it just because it's the popular language. It really depends on what you want to use the language for. So, for example, if you're just interested in learning another East Asian language, China is becoming a global economic superpower. So it could, help you in many ways in your career. You see what I'm trying to do here? It's like, at the end of the day, it is your interests that are gonna be the thing that motivates you to persist in learning the language. Because, to be honest, both of these languages are a pain in the ass to learn, so...
We gon' live it up, we them Hong Kong kids, we don't give a fuck. The whole world better listen up, all you fake kids better run. So everybody put your drink in the sky, we can get high.